Hey, KanjiEater here. Just got back from a 3-week trip in Japan, which was pretty awesome, and I figured I'd talk about some of the otaku goods that I bought while we were at Comiket, as well as traveling around Hokkaido. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and jump in. So first off, this is a Freeland hoodie that I got from the Comiket vendor booth. It was first time at Comiket, didn't really know what to expect, so I know a lot of times they say, I already have picked out what you want, but I was really just wandering around. Thought this was pretty cool. It's stitched on there, really high quality. Also the most expensive thing that I bought while I was in Japan. Then I picked up a couple of doujin manga. This is 2 volumes of this person's work that I had definitely never heard of before. It caught my eye just because it was really clean character designs, really clean pages, layouts. And then for this next one, this one really stood out just because it was such a big volume, single story. A lot of dark and ocean work, which if you've seen the Manben episodes with Morohoshi Daijiro, basically talks about how difficult it is to draw the ocean at night in manga, like with monochrome and stuff. So I thought this was kind of stood out for those reasons, I guess. And I got to talk to the author a little bit. One of my biggest comic regrets being my first time there is I was talking to the authors of both of these and I forgot to ask them to sign anything. So that was a missed opportunity. And then speaking of opportunities, my last day in Japan, I went ahead and picked this one up from Melon Books. So this was actually at Comiket. I saw it. I had no idea what it was, so I was a little bit hesitant to just like dive in and grab it. But after reading the intro here, it seems that basically this is a collection of mecha designs that were originally intended for a game that just never actually ended up happening. And the artist didn't actually get paid for it. And then whatever happened there, apparently he decided here in 2024 after waiting, almost 20 years to finally publish some of his mecha designs out. And so has his little Twitter handle here. So that's Akimoto Cozy. And you can find his stuff on Twitter as well as he had his own booth at Comiket as well. So that was also pretty cool. The last thing that I got at Comiket was actually this, which the mangaka for Jukakukan no Sashijin, which I was a big fan of the mystery novel. And then I really like the art style of the newer version that just came out a couple years ago. I think it just finished its full run. All right, so this next one is a documentary of Hino Hideshi, which is really old school, famous for manga. And it's a DVD, basically a bunch of interviews with Junji Ito and a couple other people. So I'm looking forward to learn more about him. I've only read a little bit of his stuff. If you look him up and you're into like horror manga, you've probably seen his art before, but he's maybe a little bit lesser known in the gaijin circles. So the next one passed away last year, Mezukazuo. So I got this from Mandarake when I was in Tokyo with Doth. Hadn't heard of this one before, so didn't really know what to expect. It was hardcover though, and so I feel like Mezukazuo's stuff is probably just going to go up in value. I haven't read his stuff. Didn't have it digitally. A bunch of color pages on it, so it was like a kind of a cool pickup or just a random find from Mandarake. And then this next one is a post-hardcore band from Kyushu that actually was playing while I was in Japan, but I missed them because I was in Hokkaido when they were in Tokyo. However, I had found their music earlier this year, I think randomly on Twitter. They'd broken up a long time ago and are now back. I can't remember when these ones are from, but I think they're like early 2000s-ish. So tracked them both down. A lot of this stuff, so at least these two, like if I just couldn't find it anywhere, I think one of them I got off of Mercari, and then the other one I just picked up from Amazon. So while I was in Japan, I just got, like, instead of wasting a bunch of time looking around for specific stuff, I would just order a bunch of stuff off Amazon. That way I could get it at the hotel I was at. And then I didn't have to search around through book-offs for hours on end like I've done before. So then the next section here. So these were basically from some exhibits that I went to in our time in Japan. So first off, went to the Initial D author's manga exhibit. He had a bunch of just stuff from Initial D, his previous work to that, which I don't remember the name of, and then the newest one, MF Ghost. And so I just picked up just kind of something from the gift shop to remember that. I might post this on my wall. It's like 4 pieces of just the Gensaku that was originally part of Initial D. So kind of a cool find. I was glad that we got to do as many of the exhibits that we did while we were in Tokyo. That's probably one of my favorite things to do in Japan, quite honestly. So then the other one, I also did not know that this was even going on in Japan at the time, but there was a exhibit for Death Note where they basically set up enough of the story to like cover the entire series of Death Note, and specifically, so they had the Gensaku on the wall. They had little recreations of rooms from the story that were just kind of good little like picture moment spots. And then I got this one, which just probably won't show up very well on camera, but this is kind of like one of those 3D holographic things that kind of looks cool in a frame, so I picked that up too. And then this was done by the original mangaka artist, and he basically did this one for this image for the exhibit. And it's kind of a weird thing, and it's an acrylic stand, so it'll end up just like, let's see, like standing up on these little pegs that are on the back. And so it doesn't really need a frame or anything, but I think that's kind of weird, and I'm not really big into the whole acrylic scene like apparently a lot of actual Japanese otaku are, but it's an interesting new buy for me. So then from there, so this is the game that I'm playing through right now with the Otaku Club in the Discord. I picked up the 3 guides for Sora no Kiseki. So this is the first time that I've ever played through any of the Trails games. More of a Tales fan traditionally, but I figured I'd try one of these out. And I was playing through the book, through the game, and didn't have a guide. And I gotta say, there's a lot of things that are just really easy to miss. And even with, like, I was looking at the Japanese guides, they were not very streamlined, quite honestly. And then I started using a really simplified English guide, and I was like, I'm not really a fan of this either, and I started missing stuff. So anyway, it was just like, let's just get proper Japanese guides with pictures and whatnot, map layouts, all the stuff that'll actually make a really long game a little bit more fun to play, a little bit more streamlined. So the small one is the Evolution version, which is what I'm playing through on Vita. And then they never actually made the Evolution versions for the second and third part. So kind of weird, but apparently all the story is still the same. So it shouldn't really matter too much, but I just thought that was kind of a strange thing that they only made one official one for Evolution, but then for the other ones, it's just the original guides. So I'm looking forward to actually using those. So one of the main things that we were doing in Japan this year was going to Hokkaido, which we became obsessed with basically because of Golden Kamui. So this was my wife's pickup, which was the Ashirapa little figure, which has a bunch of like goofy faces on it and stuff. I'm not a super big fan, and neither is she, of the like chibi stuff, but she was a big enough fan of this one to make an exception, I guess. And then, so this was picked up from the Tokyo Dome Jump store, which is basically, 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle that is all like manga panels and stuff to go into this image that my wife said she'd put it together, and then maybe we'd frame it at some point. So that'd be a cool little addition. All right, so next section, I feel like this time I was a little bit more held back when it comes to actually buying stuff from Japan. I think like last time I brought home like 100 books, but these days I just try to buy as much stuff digitally as possible. So anything that I bought, I pretty much was trying to make sure it was stuff that I just couldn't buy digitally whenever I actually wanted it, and just kind of declutter things physically. However, with Tales stuff, I'm a little bit more, I guess, loose just because I really enjoy this series. So I tried to pick up as many things that I could that still kind of fit that criteria. And this is basically what I ended up with. So this is probably my biggest stack of things that are in one theme, basically, right? So first off, there's these 2 books, which are from Tales of Abyss. I'm really not sure if it's just going to be like recaps of the story or side stories or what. But this was definitely one of the better Tales games. I'd put it probably in the top 3. So first one being Tales of Symphonia, then Tales of Fantasia, and then Tales of the Abyss. So hopefully this one gets a proper remake soon, and we can play it in Japanese, because that would be awesome. And then these next ones are from Tales of Destiny 2, which I still haven't played through, but I did just finish Tales of Destiny, the Director's Cut PlayStation 2 version. So that would be the next thing to move on to after this, is to go on to the PlayStation 2 version of that, and then check out the story that we have here, which is a standalone one, and then this 2-parter one here, which looking forward to actually figuring out who these characters are after all these years, because that one never got an English translation. I think they may have just finished like a fan translation of it, but I mean, it gave me long enough time where it was in English at all to go ahead and learn Japanese to a point where I can just play it myself. So I'm going to do that here pretty soon. So then this is probably like the worst Tales game, in my opinion. Well, besides Legendia, which is definitely the worst. Then Graces is probably the worst after that. But the battle system was really fun. And I already had the first 2 volumes of the manga, so I figured I might as well complete this 4-volume set here. So went ahead and picked that up, despite not being that big of a fan of Graces, quite honestly. Then one that is really good, though, is Tales of Vesperia. So this is the anthology comic. So I believe, somebody can correct me here if I'm wrong, but I think these might have been the ones that were published to the Tales of magazine, which had like kind of a short lifespan where they were making manga for it, specifically for that. I believe these are going to be like standalone stories that are completely separate. It's a little bit bigger size than the normal standard manga volumes as well. Anyways, anything around Tales of Vesperia that's kind of like new that I haven't experienced should be interesting. That was one of the better Tales games in my opinion. Not like the best. I already kind of, said what my top 3 would be, but just the characters, the battle system. It all came together in a really solid package for what still feels like a classic Tales game, but is probably more modern than, some of the other more retro titles that they have, like that are PS2 and before. That was really the first time where they went on to like Xbox 360 and then PlayStation 3, so it was a bit more modern. Anyways, Tales of Versus. So this was definitely just one of those. It happened to be at Book Off, and it was way cheaper than I'd be able to get it otherwise. Tales of Versus was kind of like Super Smash Brothers for Tales characters, which is kind of weird. I've played a couple matches on my Vita here recently, but it was always one of those games that never got localized, so I never really got to try it out. It's probably a really simple fighting guide that doesn't really need a book guide on it, but I was like, yeah, what the heck, I'll check it out, why not? Then this is for Tales of the World, Narikiri Dungeon 2. So there's also a third one of these. Well, I mean, there's 3 of them in total. And the first one got remade into Tales of Fantasia X, which is available on PSP. So I'll probably just play through that one. But this would be the original Game Boy Advanced game, which I do actually own the physical cartridge. I think I picked that up from like Super Potato like 5 years ago, and for pretty cheap. And it looks really good on actual hardware. If you just look up images of like what Narikiri Dungeon 2 and 3 looks like, it doesn't look much on like modern screenshots, but on the actual hardware, I think it looked really impressive. And the actual gameplay for these is very unique to Tales games, where it's more of like a class-based system, but it still has like the action RPG elements. So looking forward to actually trying that one out. I'm not sure when I'll actually get to that on the backlog, but looking forward to it nonetheless. So then these next 2 are Tales of the World 2 and 3. So there's the Narikiri Dungeon ones, which were kind of like old school retro ones. And then they did more modern based like aggregation titles where, so that's just it. Like the Tales of the World games are all the characters from all the series come together in one thing with very loosely put together story where you're really just there to hang out with the characters more, right? And so Narikiri Dungeon is like the class-based one, but the Tales of the World Radiant Mythology is more just like more of the modern classic Tales feel, where the first one was on PSP. I played through that in English. Then the second and third one never even got localized. So looking forward to actually diving through that. So that's why I only grabbed the first 2 books. Also, these, I think they only had the first 2 when I was looking at book. I think I got these from the Sapporo Book Off because the Tokyo one was picked pretty dry, I'm going to be quite honest. Which I guess that's what happens when you go to a bigger city's book off. And then this last one was also from Sapporo. So this is kind of an interesting one because the original Tales of Destiny, which features this main character Stan, he originally came out in PlayStation 1, and then they had Tales of Destiny 2, which has his son Kyle, which is then like a PS2 version that then got a PSP version as well. And so what's interesting about this one is this came out before Destiny got remade onto the PlayStation 2 as well, which is the one that I just played through. And so it has all the characters from that as the original PlayStation 1, which is what I played through originally, but I don't remember it because I played through it in English back in high school. So this was a long time ago. So it has all the art from that, which will be kind of nostalgic to just kind of go through, but then also all of the characters from PlayStation, from Destiny 2, the PlayStation 2 version. So just in general, I think it'll be an interesting way to kind of like refresh what happened in the original Destiny, not the remade version, and see just kind of how the series actually evolved. So it kind of managed to get published right in between that gap. And then it has this full poster of still intact. I'll try not to destroy this as I'm going through it. But yeah, still had that intact as well from Book Off. So another cool find. So that was all the Tales stuff that I found. So in the usual KanjiEater fashion, the video did not turn out as abbreviated as I had thought. And instead of trying to rush it all into this one or cut down the content, I'm just going to go ahead and make a part 2 of it, where I cover the last 30 or so things that I bought, including some of the mecha plastic models that I had bought, as well as and some of the TRPG stuff, as well as a whole bunch of other things along the way. So go ahead, like, subscribe, stick around for the next one when I drop the part 2, and I'll be talking to you guys about this in the Discord, where we've been playing some of these games, watching some of these series, reading some of these mangas in the Otaku Club. So I'll catch you guys around there and see you at the next one.